Hi, this is Prateek. In this session, we will talk about position management in I-21. Alright, so position management or position report is part of risk management module in I-21. What you see on screen is our position management report, and it gives you a holistic picture of your key position items like company title stock, price risk, basis risk, available for spot sales, and in-house numbers. Now, I'm going to explain these things to you, what they exactly mean. Some of them must be pretty clear, but I'm going to explain that to you anyways as I move from this screen into the details and talk about each and every component, right? So, all right, so what you see on the screen, as you can see, there are two parts. The first quadrant talks about the positions at commodity level. Right, so in this case, for example, I have selected soybean. So soybean as the commodity is having these positions. But what happens is the way our transactions are captured, each transaction gets linked to a location. That means we will always be in a position to report positions based on locations. So then what happens is the number which is there on the grid, the top grid, gets blown up, and that number is shown against various locations in the second grid. So essentially, the main screen is having two components. You have the DPR by commodity, or the position by commodity, and the position by locations. All right, so the next thing would be to talk in depth about these numbers. Now, for example, if you have a look here, 166,000, what is this number? How did we arrive at this number? What is company title stock, right? In order to have better information about this, I would recommend that we get into the next step, which is the details. Now, there are two ways. Number one, do you want to drill down into commodity level information, or do you want to drill down into location level information? Of course, there are positions, but do you want to be location centric or commodity centric? If you were to be commodity centric, what you would do is you would just click on the line, as I did, and then what happens is the detail screen opens up. Now, this is where the things start getting really interesting, because now you can see there is a clarity on all the numbers, right? For example, if I say I'm having a certain amount of grain in-house, why is it in-house? Because I did a scale in and I distributed the grains to a customer-owned storage, which is known as open storage. That's column 2, right? And open storage is part of in-house. So let's get back to in-house. What is in-house? In-house is technically all the grains which you're holding in-house, right? So it doesn't really make a difference. Is it customer-owned? Is it company-owned? Everything which is in the elevator becomes in-house. Now, the storages can be of the type non-receipt or receipt, right? So when you configure a storage, and we can talk about the storages in detail in a separate session, but you would see that when you are setting up a storage in I-21, you get various options how you would configure. For example, is the storage company owned? Is it customer owned? Is it of the type receipt? Is it of the type non-receipt? Right? So let's just focus the conversation around these 2 points. And when I configured open storage for this demonstration, I made it customer owned and of the type non-receipt. So as you can see, the total non-receipted inventory is to the extent of open storage, because that's the only storage which was set up as non-receipt. If I had configured one more storage of the type non-receipt, you would see another line or another column coming in between open storage and total non-receipted. Now the thing is, if you observe, there are no columns showing you a 0 position. And that's what makes this report very interesting, because you don't see a lot of extra information for which you don't have position to begin with. So the columns are dynamic in the sense that they appear and disappear based on Are we holding positions against them or are we not holding positions against them? All right, so let's move on to the next one. So we spoke about in-house, open storage, non-receipted. Now collateral receipt. What's a collateral receipt? What's happening here is, think of a scenario where you bought grains from somebody, you made a payment, that means it's paid in full, but it's lying in the supplier's facility. So if there was a grain examiner who's coming to your place or a grain inspector who's coming to your place, you would want to show this position as your company title because you have made the payment. So that's the reason such grains for which you have already made the payment but it's lying at supplier's position or which is lying at supplier's elevator, we show it as a collateral receipt purchase. Now the collateral receipt purchase is of the type receipt, and as you can see it has increased our receipted total, right, which is the next column. Now purchase basis deliveries and sales basis deliveries, these are just information purpose columns, and what are they telling us? They're just telling us purchase basis delivery means that I have purchase basis contracts against which I have received inventory. What does sales basis delivery means? That I have a sales contract which was of the pricing type basis and I did an inventory shipment against that sales contract. Now what's company title stock? Company title stock is all the grains that is company owned. That means you have two kind of grains. You have customer owned, you have company owned, and we have just given you a segregation stating what kind of grain is owned by the company, what kind of grain is owned by the customer. Okay, so moving on to the next point, or the next grid rather, we have the open positions. I'm talking about the second grid now, the open positions here. Now what do we show here? We show all the open contracts and the future positions which you have taken, and then we use a combination of your open positions to compute your price risk and basis risk. So in the second grid, what we are doing is we are showing you your open positions. As you can see, you have purchase price, purchase basis. If you had sales price or basis positions, they would show up here as well. Even HTA positions show up here, as you can see, right? Now, as we are going through these numbers, it's very important that, for example, if you look at the first column, which is purchase price, why is that number looking so different? Let's just say it is looking different for this example. So if that was my concern, what I can do is I can just click on this. It happens to be a drill down, which is such a good feature because if you were in this situation as I am, you would just click on this and it would give you a list of all the contracts because of which you are holding that position. Right now things are pretty clear. And worst case, let's just say you look at the first contract and just say, I didn't make this contract. Why is this contract here? Right? So what you can do is you can actually click on the link, which happens to be a hyperlink to the contract itself. And then what happens is the physical contract opens up, and the physical contract, as you can see, that opens up. And once the contract is open, you can have a look. You can go to audit log. You can check who created the contract. In this case, John created the contract, and I could actually check the contract quickly, make sure all the parameters are correct, and if there was some concern, if I felt that something was wrong, I can actually go to activities and leave a message for John telling him to change the quantity, right? So I can just say change quantity. I'm just selecting John's name. Okay. So I'll just select John's name. Or in this case, because I have not selected John's name correctly, I'm just going to leave a message for the person who created the contract and request them to change the quantity to 4000 BU and save. Now what's going to happen is this person will receive a message, and while I'm looking at the position, if that person makes a change, I can click on refresh, or if I have set an auto refresh, what's going to happen is it'll automatically refresh my position, so I don't even have to close the screen. As and when the positions are changed, the numbers get reflected in I-21 position report. Okay, so that's that. And the next thing would be talking about, this was open positions for the physical contracts. Now we also have open positions for the derivatives. We call it net hedge, and this will show you a list of all the transactions which have not been matched with each other. That means open derivative transactions. Again, it's a hyperlink. That means if you were interested to figure out why you are holding this position, you can actually click on the hyperlink and just have a look at all the transactions which make up this number. The next thing would be price risk and basis risk. Okay, so price risk is a computed number. How did we get at price risk? That big number which you are seeing on screen, that's a combination of all the positions which you're holding against priced contracts, purchase and sales, HTA contracts, purchase and sales, and the futures. We also have a unique way of making options a part of the futures or the price risk. How does that work? Let's just say when you were recording the settlement prices for options, you recorded the delta, right? So if you have the delta in the settlement prices of options, we will compute delta equivalent future position for those options and make it part of your price risk. So that is price risk. And of course, when I spoke about price risk, I missed one component, which is the inventory. What if you received inventory against price contracts? That will also be part of your price risk. Okay, so these are the various things which make up price risk. Now, basis risk, it includes your price contracts, purchase and sales, your basis contract, purchase and sales, and inventory received against all such contracts, price purchases and basis purchases, right? So that's that. And what is net payable and what is net receivable? So what's happening here is we have a simple logic which states that if you have a purchase contract and a purchase contract that is priced, that means it's having futures and basis components both, and you have received inventory against it. The moment these two activities happen, we say that the position is payable because you have received what was receivable and the contract is priced, so we call it a payable. Now, what's a receivable? It works on exactly the same logic, just that instead of being on the purchase side, it's on the sales side. And that just means that if there was a sales contract and the contract was priced and you had done an inventory shipment, that means you have given the grain to the customer, it becomes a receivable. That means you are supposed to be paid for. And that's what these columns talk about, payables and receivables. The next one is available for spot sale. And again, this is a very interesting logic. So what we are trying to do here is we are just trying to figure out if a customer was to call you today and ask, can I buy 5,000 bushels from you? How would you figure out that the 5,000 bushels which is lying in your facility is indeed something which can be delivered to him? So what we do here is we look at your inventory, your owned inventory, and compare it with your sales obligations. That means your existing open sales contract, right? So just let's talk about, let's just say you had 10,000 bushels of company owned stock which is lying in your facility in-house, and then you have 8,000 bushels of sales contract, open sales contract. Now, if I was to call you and you had to decide how much grain is available for spot sale, it's obviously the inventory which is your owned or your ownership, and you would look at your existing obligations. That means you have to deliver the inventory against the existing sales contract, which is 8,000 bushels. So that means once that process is over, you would be left with 2,000 bushels for selling it to other people. So available for spot sale compares your inventory, which is your ownership, with your existing sales obligation and just gives you a true value of where you stand and how much inventory can be sold if somebody was to call you today, right? So that's that. And now if you have a look below, the third grid has a lot of value, I would say, because let's just say you're looking at these numbers: priced positions, basis positions, HTA positions. Now, you know, me being curious, I just want to figure out, why am I holding this position? Like, is there something wrong? Did I miss something? What we do here is we blow up the position based on delivery months. Now, if you look in the third grid, it's giving you why I'm holding the position I'm holding, right? So now it becomes very clear and easy for us to figure out what happened. So if you have a look here, for example, we talk about purchase HTA contracts. In this case, as you can see, all the position is in the nearby month. That means the entire position belongs to months prior to or equal to a certain month. In this case, it's November, right? So now I'm in a position to easily figure out where my positions lie. Now, similarly, we have this logic for the net hedge. Now, what is net hedge? Net hedge is just a futures position. So if I was to look at this, you would see that I would not have any position, any derivative position against November. And that is because these months, when I say they were delivery months, they actually are an overlap between shipment and delivery months. So then what happens is, if you see, all the position that I'm holding is against September, most probably. That's the reason you are seeing it against a nearby month and not against November, or sorry, not against December or any other month. So that's that. And as a quick summary, the positions here, they talk about your overall positions. They can be inventory positions, they can be your open contract positions, and for the ease of use purposes, we blow up these numbers by various delivery and shipment months. And these months also happen to be the future month because we also show you your future positions. Now, we have one interesting thing in which, for example, if you wanted to immortalize your position, what you can do is you can click on print and it will generate a print for you, which you can save and, you know, refer whenever you need to check what was your position as of a certain date. So that's that, and that was our position management in I-21. Now there's another aspect to this position management. If you were using our portal, I-21 portal, what you can do is you can give the portal access to your vendors and customers, and then if they were to log in, what would happen is, for example, let's just say you give the portal access to one of your vendors. What would happen is when he logs in I-21, he will not see your data. He will just see the data which is common between him and you. That means just his contracts with you. And let's just say I select A1 Portal Farms. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to see a list of all the positions which have been created for A1 Portal, right? So the advantage of doing this would be, instead of Mr. A1 Portal calling me and asking what's the status of my open positions, how much payable, what are the various values, right? Instead of he calling you and asking, he can just log into the portal and just check the numbers. So clearly there are advantages of using the portal in I-21. Now, a quick wrap up of the position. As you saw, on a very high level, positions can be seen at commodity level and at location level, right? So as you can see, positions can be seen at commodity level and location level, and if I wanted to have more information about the commodity, I can drill down into a specific commodity or a specific location and check all the details. We also have an option to take a PDF print of the entire position, which acts like a snapshot, and you can refer it at a later point of time. Thank you.